Hey folks, I'm just on the road again, so I figured I better make a video. I've got a video in production. I'm processing it right now, and I've got the audio for that will be the podcast for the Mind of a Skeptical Leftist. I recently put out an episode of From Many People's Strength with my co-host David Richards, where we talk about the recent debate between Ryan Miley and Scott Moe for the leadership for the Saskatchewan provincial election. Not everybody's going to find that part interesting, but what you might find interesting, even if you're not interested in Saskatchewan, is David's analysis of the way that government is often expected to behave like a business, but how it's also always framed as running a deficit is always bad, when we know like that's not true. And David has a finance background, an economic background, so he really does have the information and the knowledge to break that down, and he does a really amazing job of it as far as I'm concerned. I think everybody should be going and listening to that. It's called From Many People's Strength, and even if you don't listen to anything else that we put out with that feed, make sure to listen to the debate episode. The reason that I'm making this video, besides the fact that I'm on the road and I have nothing else to do, is that it's very important, I think, to discuss, to keep in the minds of people who are around our area in Saskatchewan, or even in your area, wherever that happens to be. I think it's important to keep in mind, even if you're not from Nova Scotia, the situation with the Mi'kmaq lobster fishermen. They have been facing a lot of harassment the last couple months. They've been facing a lot of racism. There was, back when I first heard about this, the situation was such that most of the harassment was a matter of people yelling slurs when they were driving by the Indigenous fishermen selling their lobsters at the market or whatever. I heard about it on a podcast, so I'm not sure of the exact logistics of it, but so this, I mean, that's where it started. But then we talked about it on the Skeptarchy podcast about 2 weeks ago, and it's just gotten worse. Like, right after we recorded the Skeptarchy episode, there was a boat that was damaged. There was a number of fishing, like lobster traps, that had been vandalized or stolen. And then, not that long ago, there was a group of white colonial fishermen who trapped some Indigenous fishermen in a building. They smashed up their van, set their van on fire, and they ruined the lobsters that the Indigenous fishermen had caught. And then the other day, I'm listening to a CBC report with a reporter who's actually out on a boat with the Indigenous fishermen, and they said that there was essentially a convoy of commercial fishing boats coming towards them and pulling their traps out of the water. And when they tried to get their traps back, they wouldn't give them back, and it became a very dangerous situation for everybody. All because these commercial fishermen, these white settler fishermen who insist on having the privilege of fishing and not letting the indigenous fishermen do their job, to do what they need to do, it's all because of these commercial fishermen being pissed off because the Mi'kmaq fishermen are not fishing in the same exact season as them. And there's zero difference. That it's never going to make any difference. The Mi'kmaq have the right to create their own fishing seasons, their own trapping seasons. They don't report to the same department. They don't report to the same, like the Department of Fishing and Fisheries, because they're a sovereign nation. And this has been ruled on in a court of law. In 1999, they were given the right. Well, they weren't given, it was affirmed, because they had the right before. And it was affirmed by the Supreme Court in 1999. They have the right to make a living out of this fishing. And it's just absolutely ridiculous that there are still people who can defend the actions of these fishermen while ignoring the fact that they're not, like, these are the same people that are pissed off and will say that the military should be called on the Black Lives Matter protests in the United States. These are the same people who think that vandalism against a statue of Sir John A. Macdonald is punishable by a prison sentence, ought to be punishable by a prison sentence. These are the same people that are now defending the actions of a group of terrorists and vandals who are potentially harming people and are ruining others' livelihoods. And the situation isn't like the people who are terrorizing the Mi'kmaq fishermen are not having anything threatened in their lives. Their corporate overlords, their fucking bosses, are saying that they are trying to get them to believe that they are, because their bottom line is being threatened, and they can't stand, the idea that somebody might be making money that they could be making. But it's fundamentally different in the justification for the vandalism or destruction of property, right? Black Lives Matter is about fighting against oppression, against the murder of innocent people. And that makes people frustrated, and then they act accordingly. They act in a way that people who are angry and frustrated and worried about survival do. They act that way. Sometimes some people will wreck shit. And I fully support that. I endorse, I support people rioting if it means that something can change. If it means that their voices are heard. However, this situation with the Mi'kmaq fishermen is not the same. In both situations, you have the oppressor being, it's flipped actually, is what it is. In one case, you have the Mi'kmaq, the oppressed, being terrorized by, and their property being destroyed by the oppressors, the capitalists, the commercial fishermen who are working for the bosses, their bosses. In Black Lives Matter, you have the oppressed committing property destruction in response to oppression. But the commercial fishermen in Nova Scotia are not being oppressed. These people are still making their money. They're just fine. They're just mad and racist. And I heard something as well that there was apparently something going on in their legislature to call this out for racism and for what it is, really. And instead, the people, one of the parties just absolutely would not endorse this message of racism. They said that it can't be related to race. Like, you have to be able to listen to both sides of this situation. Well, no, I'm sorry, you don't. On one side, you have people who are just fishing. You know, they're just doing trapping some lobsters to sell a little bit and to feed their communities and get the money they need to survive. As is their right. Sorry, I have to pass this guy. He's going way too slow. So, I don't know, it's frustrating. Because these Mi'kmaq fishermen, they do not deserve the mistreatment that they're getting. They deserve to be able to make a living. They deserve to fish according to their own guidelines and ideas of what is going on there. I saw a graphic the other day, something about there's 200 or something Indigenous fishermen, boats, lobster boats, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of commercial boats out there. They're taking such a small amount of the lobsters out of the area that it's just, I don't know. It's ridiculous. I think when we talked about it on Skeptarchy, we also mentioned that there is no guidelines, there is no official seasons for this. There's no reason that they couldn't trap lobsters during this time before. There's not going to be any. It's not a conservation issue because the lobster season is mainly arbitrary. But I think that this is still a developing story. There's still lots going on there. It's just I want to express my solidarity, my support for the Mi'kmaq fishermen. It's frustrating. I don't know what else to say. I got a great bit of feedback from my last video from my friend Lisa, who thought maybe I contradicted myself when I said that I had changed my mind after discussing a subject with somebody. It's possible that I did. Sometimes when you ramble in front of a camera for long enough, you just like it's stream of consciousness, right? Like some things might end up contradicting the previous statement, but I think that my main thesis still stands, that it's incredibly difficult to change people's minds. And even if you are lucky enough to plant a seed, most people will forget about it. Maybe we can make more progress. Maybe there's something that you can do. Maybe you can, I don't know. I don't want to be hopeless about it. It seems rather silly to be like, there is no hope, right? Of course, we can never change anybody's mind, and now we're just going to fight each other until we're all dead. That's terrible. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who says, okay, I mean, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. So, but keep trying, because it's important. Keep putting out content, sharing content that you like. Keep trying to change people's minds. Maybe you can't do it right away. Maybe, like you say, you can plant a seed, and I don't know that it works. I don't think that it works, but I don't want to be hopeless. So I guess that's that. I don't know if there's much else to say. I mean, right now there's some stuff going on in the Canadian government that's kind of fucked up. The Conservatives and the NDP want to start a committee. Mainly it's the Conservatives, but because of this Justin Trudeau scandal and what seems pretty apparently to be a lack of accountability in the Liberal government, the NDP and the Conservatives have been talking about starting a committee to just make sure that there's no corruption, like an anti-corruption committee of sorts or whatever. And apparently Justin Trudeau said that he won't do it, and if they don't like it, they can trigger an election, but with a vote of non-confidence. I mean, I don't know. That seems pretty fucking sketchy to me, but I also don't think that now is a great time for an election. And I also don't think that I want, the Conservatives anywhere near anything related to corruption. If they have control of a committee based on that's dealing with corruption, well, I mean, that's not going to fucking help anybody. They're as corrupt or more corrupt than any fucking Liberal Party stuff. Like, and the thing is, without the NDP is kind of not a very strong party right now federally. Like, they kind of have the sway of balance in a lot of cases, but if Justin Trudeau throws down the gauntlet and says, I'm not doing what you want, vote, say that you don't have confidence in the government, I'm not convinced that the NDP is willing to sacrifice their current bargaining position, in favor of a no confidence vote. Which is, I mean, maybe a little disappointing. Yeah, I don't know. Provincially, I mean, we're coming up on the election. It's like 6 days away, 5 days away. So, if you are from Saskatchewan, make sure that you have your vote in. 2 weeks after that, we have our municipal elections, and we're going to be talking about that on my podcast with David Richards. It's called From Many People's Strength, just in case I didn't mention that 6 or 7 times already. And yeah, I think that I don't know what else to say, really. I think that's about it. I've still got to focus on driving a little bit here, so that's why I have to pause my conversation. BC is also like, I don't know, they're going to have an election like right away too. I don't know if it might have even already happened at this point. I haven't been paying, unless it's on Politicoast, I don't pay attention. So I guess we'll see. I just listened to a bonus episode the other day talking about, I guess it was just yesterday that I listened to it, but it was a bonus episode on the BC Liberals platform. So I guess we'll see what happens out there. I suspect they'll stick with their NDP government. For anybody who's actually interested in Canadian politics, anyway, that's where that's at. I think that it's actually just as interesting as American politics, but we don't get the media. We don't have the media that they have in the U.S., and there's not quite as much controversy. But I find it just as interesting myself. And it's good if people can stay informed. I suppose it's important that I should mention I'm not like a political expert in any stretch. I'm just a person who reads a lot and listens to a lot of stuff. I don't know if that helps you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe some people can be like, oh, well, he's just a regular person. Maybe he's, got the same ideas as I do. And sometimes I do. I kind of scoff at a lot of stuff, though, that people around here believe. So maybe I don't have the same ideas as a lot of regular people. But either way, thanks for watching this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, share if you think that it's something that's valuable. Seriously, solidarity with the Mi'kmaq fishermen. This is important. This is a move where, this is a situation where we as a country can actually do like the right thing if we support the Indigenous fishermen, and instead of just like falling in line with capitalist interests. Like it's so clear the line of who's moral and who's not here that I really just gotta say, like, stand with support. Stand with Mi'kmaq. The Mi'kmaq people. Anyway, I guess that's all I got. What was I saying? Yes. Like, subscribe, share. Make sure to spread your support of the Mi'kmaq fishermen. And if you like my stuff, I've got the Mind of a Skeptical Leftist podcast. I've got Skeptarchy. I've got From Many People's Strength, because I haven't mentioned that enough times. And yeah. Thanks again. Have a good one.